everybody, I'm Brandon Jones, this is Daniel Bloodworth, and we are here to talk about a gaming franchise that both of us know very little about, which doesn't sound like a smart idea. You want at least one person on the table, but man, I went around the entire company, all 9 allies, and all of us have a very little experience with Oddworld.
Yeah.
It's the kind of franchise that I know. I mean, I could probably draw some of the characters from it. It definitely has a very specific style, a fun personality, and is its own unique world. But I just
know some
never
names.
spent time
I know
with
there's Abe. I know there's
right?
Munch.
Yeah. So I got to play Oddworld Soulstorm, and this was everybody handles their pre-E3 Critics Tour. I think it's the official name of Judges Week.
Oh, really?
They all handle. Yeah,
I didn't know it had a name.
Pre-E3 Critics Tour, I think. Yeah. And everybody handles their appointments differently. This one was handled, I thought, fairly effectively because there were enough PC stations for one group to go, and then the other group could step in. This was the last appointment of the week, and before we actually sat down and played the demo, the head of the dev team played the demo for us. So played the level that we were about to play, showed us kind of some of the fun stuff that we could do. I'll get into it later, but I definitely picked I'm just going to be doing that the whole time. Like I saw him use one of the powers, and I was like, oh, that's my power. That's
the dev team
that's
is
my
just
jam.
Oddworld inhabitants, right?
I believe, yeah.
Yeah. So that's funny. It's like their whole name is for this franchise.
Oh, these people love, they definitely not only loved this game and loved talking about it, but loved experimenting with it, and it was fun. The guy actually made a couple mistakes. He was like, oh, and then I'll just use my Molotovs. And he lit himself on fire, lit his the people he's trying to save. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I can't speak a lot to the world of Oddworld, but the point of the mission that I saw, and generally the point of most of the missions in the game, I'm led to believe is that you are rescuing your fellow, fellow members of your species. I don't know specifically what your fellow Abes, and they are all working in this environment. This was a factory, and so it's just this. It's a side-scrolling platformer-ish, side-scrolling puzzle game, basically, action puzzle game. But this factory just went forever. So, like, if you were just looking way into the background, you can see all these little guys just working and doing stuff. And one thing that was neat is there were other stations where you could look ahead, so you would get to one spot, and then there'd be a lens that you could look through and be like, that's where I'm going. Okay, I can kind of see what's you can preview some areas that you're moving to, and the camera would move in and out and swivel around depending on where you were in the level. So you might take a 90-degree angle that curves around, and the camera will move with him as he navigates it. But I think the number one word that I take away from this demo, which is why I had a lot of fun actually playing it, was just experimentation. There's a lot of crazy stuff that you can do. There's a lot of different ways that you can play levels, and you have infinite lives. So all you got to do is get through it, and then you beat the level. But obviously, the more points you get, the more currency you have, the more you can level up, the quicker you can advance in the game. So you want to try to get as many of these things to the end as you can, but there's so many comical ways that they can get wiped out. Like one classic example was right at the end of the level, you were basically passing through a couple of train stations. So you're hopping across these platforms, and every 15 seconds, this huge thing comes flying by, and he would jump, and all his little guys would go, oh, follow him, and they'd be mid jump, and they would go by. But it was hilarious. When they were demoing it, and he would lose 6 guys, the whole room would crack up because you could tell he's like, I really want to get through this and not do that, but it's just chaos. There's so many elements. There's a lot of you're playing with fire and mind manipulation and stuff that you can test out, and it's just easy to imagine. It's the kind of level where if you got through and only lost 3 guys, you'd be tempted to go back and let me just try that one more time. But I know I unlocked the next level, but I want to try to go back and do this again. So I wanted to get as many guys as I should have written it down. I don't know how many guys I ended up with.
Follow you around in a big clump, or?
So there's a one button that you can hit to just send out a general ping. Hey, everybody, come with me. They all have hard hats on, and so when the hard hat comes off, that's when they're following you.
Oh, okay.
And they'll just naturally follow you through the environment. Before there was just a lot of simple, I got to open this door and then they can follow me. They're a little smarter this time around, so they can jump off of platforms and follow you that way. They'll climb down on things. You can arm them. So you can give a lot of the combat that you did was throwables, and I don't know if that's like the way the whole game is played. Would have been nice to get some kind of assault weapon or something. Like some of the enemies had that, but it was mostly just like 2 main grenades. One you would throw that did just a lot of damage and then had a little green smoke that would pop out of it. Then the other was a Molotov, which does a lot of damage to the enemies, but will also damage you and damage your guys. And so it's a little scary giving here's 40 Molotovs, random AI people. Like good luck. But there were some sections where they really want to be playful with this engine, and there were some areas that I think you'll probably see when they release the gameplay, and you'll see in the trailers where it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. It's just chaos. Like you would get in an elevator, and that elevator would be moving up or like through the environment, and then everyone would try to attack you at the same time. And so you're just like, I'm on a turret attacking them. I'm throwing things. I already gave a bunch of Molotovs to my guys, so they're all running around on the elevator shooting at people, and it looks like nonsense when you just see it played, but when you actually go through and play it yourself, you're like, oh, I do have control. I can kind of tell what's going on here.
Cool.
And then obviously all you got to do is just get through that sequence alive. But if you can if you can hit the enemies before they can do damage to your guys. My favorite ability was you can mind control. And depending on how many guys you have on your team, that adds more time to the amount of time. Like when you try to mind control something, I think it was like the left trigger, and it produces a little sprite that has a clock on it, like 12, 11, 10.
Okay.
And then you have that much time to just literally move it over a bad guy and then lock onto them, and then you would take mind control. And it was fun because they were always in really good positions to take out other enemies. They were usually like right next to them. And they'd be at stations where they would revive, I think like 2 or 3 times. So even if you took out a guy, another one would come back just to give you more fodder, more enemies to take over, and not just make it so simple as that I can just throw something at these guys and then get everybody through. It's like you either have to take out one guy if you're trying to go for a time trial and get like a short time, kill him and then run, so you can get your whole team in there before they spawn another dude. Or if you're a perfectionist, just, take your time in killing all the 3 or 4 of them so that like that station's cleared. And I think you can even see above the door they pop out of how many are left, or it'll like turn green or something when they pop back in. But I was with one of the devs, and I'm like, when I saw the mind meld, I was like, oh, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to do that the whole time, because the guys actually had guns, and so they could shoot up and down, and there was a lot of like destroying platforms. So you could, shoot a platform underneath a guy and he would fall, or push something that would land on a platform and then just kind of like collapse through multiple floors. And some of the gameplay clips they showed of later levels in other areas, there's just like lots of physics going on. Lots of just like, haha, push this barrel into that thing, which blew this up, which toppled this whole thing over.
That's cool. Yeah, we don't see a lot of that.
So I just think it has that kind of, it just has an air of experimentation to me. I didn't get the vibe this campaign's going to be super long. I just think you're going to want to go back and play it because, well, I kind of leaned on this one weapon, but I want to try something else for that mission. Or I want to see if I can get through in a quicker time, or if I can get through with, without anyone dying, or and I imagine because it was fun watching them play the mission, and then going through myself, because I was like, okay, I saw the mistakes he made. I noticed at one point because one thing that's fun is once everyone's doing a job that I encountered in this factory, and when you would pull someone off of a job, that's when the alarms would go off, because they'd register, wait, that guy's not at his station anymore. And so there was one guy you couldn't get if you just wandered into that zone and said, hey, everybody come with me, because that person then goes off of that door, then you can't open that door, and I can't get that guy out of there. So it's like you have to sneak up around, walk up to him and be like, hey, you, just you, come with me, guide that guy into the rest of the group, and then get them all and then leave. So there's just like little tiny beats there that I think you would only notice if you're like, I want to get everybody, and you get like, 29 out of 30. You're like, where the hell's that 30th guy? And like, oh, he would, I have to be very careful going into this one area. But like I said, it was fun to see the dev goof a little bit when playing this, die at one point, or get a lot of his dudes wiped out, because it shows just kind of the chaotic nature of how the game is played. And whereas I don't have a lot of, I think the Western one, the Stranger's Wrath, I think that's like out of all of those, because I'm a big Western fan, out of all of the Oddworld games, that was the one I'm like, ooh, this looks interesting protagonist. Very much not like that. This is classic Oddworld. And it's neat because the vibe that I got from this is it's something that I'm seeing some devs do and some devs don't when you have the opportunity maybe once or twice a generation to bring an old franchise back. In this case, a franchise that your development team is like solely known for. And I got the vibe with this, and I told the devs that, and it put a smile on their face where I'm like, this doesn't feel like you thinking that this series needs to evolve considerably, dramatically for the new gen. This seems like something where you want to bring Oddworld back. You want to bring it back to a community that loves it, that is going to have certain expectations going into it. And instead of just completely rewriting the whole, rewriting the book on what Oddworld is, just find all of these different fun, unique elements and add more. Add more functionality, add more, make the enemy smarter, make the worlds a little bit bigger, pull the camera back a little bit more, make the backgrounds more elaborate, give them more tools, more items. And so it just kind of seems like a more linear, gradual evolution of a franchise as opposed to something like as drastic as God of War. So it's something where they're just like, this is going to kind of feel like the old thing, but we really want to tell a different story. We really want to surprise you with this. There were surprising elements to this, but I couldn't stop thinking as I was playing this, like, this is what I want SSX to do. This is what I want so many other franchises to just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just see all these little tiny beats that you can just make little tiny baby improvements. Just lots and lots of options. Like I said, I did lots of mind melding, but that meant that I didn't kind of focus on some of the other items. So I didn't get to test a lot of that other stuff. But I dug what I played, and I was surprised because I was like hungry to play it. Like I watched the demo and then I, leaned over, too closely over Andrea Renee's shoulder. She was like, goofing around. And then by the time she was done and I grabbed her station, I was like, okay, I know exactly how I want to play this mission. So I think as an Oddworld fan, if this was the 4th or 5th time I've gone back to this level, okay, now I really know this level. And maybe I'll try some things. I imagine this would be a fun game to watch streamers play or watch somebody who's like not even acknowledging chat and just like, pointing out all of these fun, weird experimental things you can do with the mission. And it was lots of really bright colors. They loved sirens. There was lots of like woo woo flashing lights and stuff, and the explosions and everything. It was just they really want to show off the engine can do like 500 things at once. But the environment did remind me a lot of Oddworld stuff that I had already seen. Kind of grays and browns, very smoky, and kind of. Not a place you want to look. It looks fun to hang out in. But I asked them, is this the environment's going to evolve in any way? Is this kind of going to be the color palette of the whole game? And they're like, no, we're going to have over 20 levels. They're all going to be very, different stylistically, and of course take that with a grain of salt. Because I can't say from previous Oddworld experience if they've done something like that in the past. But what about this sounds interesting to you, Bloodworth? What do you think?
Oh, I mean, like you're talking about with the physics and the way everything interacts and stuff. Does it feel like you're talking about like solving a level as a puzzle? Does it feel like there's actually like different routes to take that you could like basically close off or destroy a route if you're careless, or is it more about like protecting your group?
Yeah, I think it's always just performance based. So like, I didn't have, and anytime my group got taken out, it was just me being stupid. It was like, okay. And again, if I play this mission one more time, I probably won't make that mistake. But it seemed like there was more, experimentation in getting 100%. Like that was really the trick. That's where you would see something go by and be like, okay. Like totally missed that, was not ready, had run out of items by the time I got to that point. But you can purchase stuff at vending machines in the game. You can also customize objects. And one customization that they added was you added rubber bands to a grenade and thus made it bounce off of stuff.
Okay.
And so in the tutorial section, they had this little tiny opening and a guy that was on a switch. So when you would call the elevator, he'd be like, no, and you would call it back. And so you had to take him out before you called the elevator. And so you had to like add enough rubber bands onto this thing so it would have the buoyancy to like bounce off enough to it would eventually get to him. So it's like fun kind of physicality, things like that. And again, it's side scrolling, so it's a lot of you just kind of looking at the environment and just visually trying to figure it out. I did see some people kind of get hung up because the environment was so busy on like, especially one point that you had to like go up and then over something that people were like, where do I go? And they're like, oh, you can double jump up over here. And so I think, and they did say this mission was about 70% through the game. So that might be stuff you just gradually pick up and not have to worry about.
Long way in, for sure.
But Yeah, I can't. Nothing against Oddworld. I can't say this is something that I'm probably gonna make time for, depending on what else comes out. When it's Oddworld time. But I had a lot of fun playing it. I got a big kick out of it, and it was a fun game to play. It's a fun game to demo. It was a great demo for this game because you could experiment, and it was fun to have a mission that I could run through really quickly. By the time I actually got to play it, only took a couple minutes, but it was fun to see an area up ahead and decide, oh, I want to get through this quickly, or I want to light all these guys on fire, or even if stuff went wrong, it was kind of fun just to see it collapse in a spectacular way. So how long is the game going to be? How complex are these puzzles going to get? I don't know, but it's a pretty game. And like I said before, there are some franchises that I wish evolved in this way, where it's just kind of like, any box on that list, we're just going to tick them all and just make everything just a little bit better. And from my outside perspective, knowing very, very little about Oddworld, take those impressions and that gameplay as you will. And hopefully sometime down the line, we'll talk about Oddworld Soulstorm more at Easy Allies. Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
Holy